Thank you. Hello, I'm Ann Osborne, a neuroradiologist, colleague, friend, and admirer of Curtis Sutton. Thank you all for giving me the privilege of sharing a few thoughts and feelings and memories about Curtis. I first met Curtis years ago when I was on the faculty at the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology in Washington, D.C. Some of you know about the AFIP, as it was called. Virtually every resident in North America spent 5 or 6 weeks in Washington during the residency studying radiologic, pathologic correlations. I taught brain and spine imaging at the AFIP for 17 years. Curtis Sutton came to the AFIP as a senior resident. In fact, he was the chief resident at the University of Virginia at the time. And during discussions, during the breaks and so on, I came to know and really, really liked Curtis. And one day he said to me, "Dr. Osborne, if we invited you to the University of Virginia, would you come as a visiting professor?" Well, I didn't do many visiting professorships. I spent most of my time lecturing and teaching in large meetings overseas, but I said, "Curtis, if you ask me, I'll come." And so I did. My first trip to the University of Virginia was quite an occasion, not just for the department, but for me. And I spent a couple of days teaching the residents and going over unknown cases, giving lectures, doing the stump the professor kind of sessions. And we had a dinner one night at the department chair's house. And I remember being asked by some of the residents, and they came up to me and said, how did we get you to come here, Dr. Osborne? Were you, did so-and-so or so-and-so, who were faculty members, well known at the time, did they get you here? And I said, oh, no. I came because Curtis Sutton invited me. And that was the beginning of a very long and wonderful friendship. My husband and I traveled to New Orleans a number of times after Curtis was on the faculty at Tulane, and I would teach the residents. Curtis and Ron and I would hang out. We'd go to jazz. In fact, one time Curtis took us during Jazz Fest to hear an Al Hirt retrospective at the Palm Court. Then Curtis came to Salt Lake City virtually every year, sometime around early May, would stay in our home with us and teach our radiology senior residents. He'd give lectures in the morning, then do teaching sessions with them, which they loved. And he would go from 7:30 in the morning till about 5:30 at night for 3 or 4 days. And by the time the residents finished their Curtis Sutton tutorial, those guys knew brain, spine, and head, neck, forwards and backwards. In fact, they were stars when they took their board exams. Well, the first time we invited Curtis to come and stay with us, he came and I said, "We've got a little surprise for you. My husband and I have a new dog, a golden retriever, and she'll be just about a year old by the time you come here." So we picked him up at the airport, and when we came into the house, Honey Bear, that was her name, took one look at this 6'4" tall, drop-dead good-looking guy and said, "Whoa!" And she dropped down on the floor and just looked up at him, and just the end of her tail kind of wagging a little bit, hopefully. And then Curtis, knowing that she was a little intimidated by his height and size, started to croon to her in this high, soft voice, and she was hypnotized. And thereafter, that dog adored Curtis, and anytime she could get away with it, she'd sit right next to him, put her chin on his lap, and look at him adoringly with those liquid brown eyes. So Curtis charmed everybody he met. Didn't matter whether we had 2 legs or 4 legs. That was Curtis Sutton. Some of our fondest memories of Curtis are sitting around after a long day of his teaching, teaching our residents. We'd have a nice dinner, and then we'd sit around afterwards and just talk. Oh, my husband, who just died a little bit more than a year ago, loved Curtis, and Curtis loved him. The three of us would sit and talk for hours, and sometimes, if we were really, really lucky and we were all feeling relaxed and in a good mood, Curtis would sing for us. He had one of the most beautiful tenor voices I have ever heard. And he would sing for us, and we would sit there, the three of us, Ron, Honey Bear the dog, and myself, just mesmerized, not just by his voice, but by the feeling and the love that he put behind us. Curtis was one of the most kind, approachable, generous people I've ever known. He was generous with his time. He was generous with his attention. He was generous with his friendship. And he was beloved by everybody. My colleagues, the residents, and the fellows at the University of Utah are just one of the many groups that he influenced. We loved him, admired him, cherished our friendship, and will always remember him and hold him deeply in our hearts and souls. Curtis, we love you. Thank you very much.
Now and then I call your name, and suddenly your face appears. I met Curtis Lee Sutton in the fall of 1977. Cora Spate introduced us. She said, "This is my homeboy. He's smart like you are. He's interested in sciences. He's musical like you are, and I think you guys should know each other." So we got to know each other, and I convinced Curtis, because I was a sophomore and he was a freshman, to join the UNC Men's Glee Club. We were a little scarce on people of color back in that day. So we did. We sang together. It was a semester I was pledging, and I came to class in Glee Club with my bald head and my dog collar, pledging Q Psi Phi, Psi Delta chapter. And Curtis got interested, and the next semester he pledged, and the rest is history. There's a lot of things I could say about Kurt. He's only been gone a couple of months, and I miss him dearly. I think our relationship was a little different from others, in that I was his accompanist, his musical partner. And we sang at so many step shows, talent shows, weddings. I can't tell you how many weddings. We had a frat quartet I started, consisting of Sam Tucker, Reuben Blackwell, Curtis Sutton, myself. And what was really funny, he never was able to learn harmonies. He always wanted the solo, the melody line. So because he sang it so very well, we were happy to let him sing the melody, and we created all the harmonies around him in our quartet. We did all kinds of songs, from Always and Forever to Happiness Forever, Togetherness by Heat Wave. We did an arrangement of You're All I Need to Get By that I created. And he's most known, though, for those Luther Vandross songs. So I'm going to end this by just telling you a little bit about one experience in January of 1986. I'm in grad school at Tufts in Boston. I've lied and told the people I'm sick so that I could go down to New York and compete at Apollo. Curtis has lied to the people at the medical school so that he could come up from Chapel Hill to New York with Annette Parker, the other part of a group we had called Savoir Faire. And we all met that cold Wednesday night in front of the Apollo. It was icy, snowy. It was the same day that the Challenger crashed. I can see us backstage getting ready, trying to pretend we're not nervous. All the people running around, all the regular New Yorkers who, knew their way all around New York. We're country bumpkins in New York. We're getting ready to go on stage, and as was the custom, Curtis never warmed up. That boy could be outside smoking a cigarette, turn, open his mouth, and blow, and people would not know the difference. He had it that way. So we finally get ready. We're going on stage. There's this log off stage. They call it the Tree of Life. We rub it for good luck. We go out on stage, and I start a medley we created. And the first notes I go are, and Lord, those ladies almost lost their minds. Just ridiculous. Screaming and carrying on. Kurt would go, a chair is still a chair. And you know the rest. But anyway, I just want to say, Curtis, we love you. I thank God that we had the opportunity to know you and that our lives crossed at the time that it did during those many, many years ago in Chapel Hill. The world is very different without his voice right now, but somehow we'll manage to carry on and continue the life of love and just fullness that epitomized Curtis Sutton.